SPLA
Yeah.
SPLA
Yeah.
SPLA
Oh.
New Sudan
Yeah.
New Sudan
Yeah. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. In Darfur, we're gonna let it shine. In Tori, we're gonna let it shine. In Khartoum, we're gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
I greet you and I salam alaikum. Salam alaikum. I greet you in the name of our country, in the name of our movement, the SPLM, in the name of our Tujamma, the NDA, and in the name of the New Sudan. I'm happy particularly to be here to address you today because نحن في الحركة in the SPLM we have been, since we signed the Naivasha protocols on May 26th, we have been moving around in the New Sudan, explaining and sensitizing people now. Our aim is to explain and brief our constituencies in all parts of the Sudan, in the south, in the north, in the west, in the east, in the far north, and in the center of what is it that has been signed, the peace agreement, and how can we use it in order to effect democratic transformation of our country. And that's what I would like to do today. Take this occasion to continue what we are doing at home, to brief and inform the Sudanese diaspora of the peace process and the peace agreement. Because we want this peace agreement, unlike the Addis Ababa agreement and other peace agreements that have been signed in the Sudan, to be owned by the people and for the Sudanese people to use it for their own empowerment. Because if the agreement is not owned by the people, then anybody can come around and dishonor it. As Abel Elier has written, 2 minute agreements dishonored. So we want this agreement to be owned and used by the people for their own benefit. الناس يستخدم لأغراضهم. That way they will be able to defend it, and that way the agreement can last. The 6 protocols, or the 6 protocol agreements that we have signed in Machakos and in Naivasha, if and when implemented, will lead to solving the fundamental problem of the Sudan. It is not peace per se, because even a graveyard is peaceful. And so when I say that, when I talk about the peace agreement in the Sudan, I cannot disconnect it with the need for fundamental change in the Sudan. Because peace within the context of the whole Sudan is not peace, but a continuation of war in a different form. Therefore, it is important for me to revisit the problem of the Sudan itself, the problem that we set out to solve, so that we put the peace process in the context of solving what I have called the fundamental problem of the Sudan. So what is the problem with the Sudan? Al-Junubin in the past have called it Mashkila al-Junub, and we have disagreed with a lot of people on this, because we have said that there is no Mashkila al-Junub. What is the problem in the At least Southerners should not be talking about Mashkilatul Junub. I figuratively say that is as old Ugad fi Ragapi. Muni how Mashkila fi Surah. If somebody comes and sits on my back, who is the problem? The person being sat on or the person sitting on? It's the person sitting on me that is the problem, not I being sat on. And so it cannot possibly be a problem of Mashkilatul Junub. I said it in all objectivity, that it is not the problem of Southern Sudan. If you want to give it a label, and when I came here, I believe it was in 1995, I said if you want to give the problem a geographical name, then the Mashkilatul Shumal, the Mashkilatul Junub, the Mashkilatul Shumal. وما شمال كله شمالين كانوا تعبانين ده مشكلة السلطة في الخرطوم. That is the fundamental problem of the Sudan. It is not the problem with Darfur, or a problem with Jubal Nuba, or a problem with Bija, or a problem with Nubians in the far north, or a problem with Al-Masakin fi Umbadda or fi Umdurman. It is a problem of governance in Khartoum itself. Zay Mahitum Biarif, we have had nothing but war since independence, as if independence has been a curse. Because من سنة 55 لكاد 72 هنا في الحرب. Some of us were born in war, grew up in war, went to school in war, and grew gray hair in war. عجزنا في الحرب. نحن في سنة 83 we changed gears. احنا غيرنا اتجاه in terms of the answer we gave. We said no, it is not the problem of the Sudan. In our view, the problem is the attempt by various Khartoum-based regimes to build a monolithic Arab Islamic state to the exclusion of other parameters of the Sudanese diversity as constituting the fundamental problem of the Sudan and defining the Sudanese conflict. The vast majorities of the Sudanese people are therefore excluded from governance and are marginalized in the political, economic, and social fields. And this provokes resistance by the excluded, the neglected, the marginalized, and the oppressed. The Arab Islamic State ends up being imposed by force. Governance in the Sudan became chauvinistic and eventually fascist. It is clearly shown now by the situation in Darfur, relying on brute force for the ruling NIF elite to maintain its power, rather than by consent of the governed through a consensual social contract. And when I say an Islamic Arab state, I'm not talking in derogatory terms at all, because I have made it very clear before that our vision, our ideology of society is that نحن كلنا Sudanese. We are all Sudanese, whether we are of Arab origin or of African origin. نحن كلنا Sudanese. Should this insistence on our Arabness? Let us become Sudanese. What is wrong with this? That at all does not mean that we will drop our Arab cultural heritage, because it is a major contribution to Sudanese culture and to the Sudanese identity. That does not mean we drop Islam, because Islam is a Sudanese religion. Let us first and foremost accept ourselves as Sudanese. This is what can unite us. Al-Uruba cannot unite us. Africanism that is opposed to Uruba cannot unite us. Islam cannot unite us. Christianity cannot unite us, but Sudanism can unite us. Yes. Because it is the common factor. Let us also drop these crazy ideas that we must all be Arabs. Even God will not accept this. In His infinite wisdom, it is this same God that made the Arabs, that made the Nuba, that made the Fur, that made the Dinka, that made the Nubians, that made the Bija, that made the Shuluk, that made all the 500 different ethnic groups in the Sudan. And who is this to amend God's creation? This person. Zol al-Biamul amendment, I would say, is against God. I will win this case. Wallahi lazim.
Whoa! Whoa!
We as Sudanese have a concrete anchor. We have an anchor in history. Is a mind that anchor in history? Then you are a nobody, and whatever you are doing will come to nothing. لكن عندنا حدود حقيقي في تاريخ. We go back a long ways, and sometimes it is necessary to go back in order to go forward. And we need to make this exercise in the Sudan so that we can find our bearings. Because if you don't have a past, then you cannot possibly have a future. But then we did not fall from the sky. We have been here all along. There is also a series of books, The General History of Africa by UNESCO, volumes 1 to 7. And volume 2 covers the Nile Valley and the Horn of Africa. I recommend that you read, you acquire and read this book. It's by UNESCO, and it is authoritative. It has lots of research. I also recommend that you read a lot about ancient Egypt, which is very much interconnected with the Sudan. We have a long history. Peoples and kingdoms have lived, thrived, and disappeared in the geographical area now that constitutes the present Sudan. Yet, and despite all this wealth of historical evidence, the present and previous rulers in Khartoum present a false picture of our country, as if the Sudan started with them, and as if the history and reality of the Sudan consists only of specific parameters, Arabism and Islamism. We are much bigger than that. Our contention in the SPLM is that the Sudan belongs to all the peoples that now inhabit the country, and its history, its diversity, and its richness is the common heritage of all the Sudanese people. It is important to establish this firm anchor in history and to affirm that the Sudan and we, the Sudanese, are indeed a historical people. And so let no one push you off the rails of history. Kan عاوز اللي يزوق برا من التاريخ انت كنغش هناك اقول لا. I am here to stay and I have equal rights like anybody else. I have called this historical diversity, and it is very rich. Our academicians, our scholars should have مزيد من الstudy. We should have interdisciplinary teams from various disciplines to study our languages, because there's a lot of commonality. We articulated our objective as the achievement of the new Sudan, a new Sudanese political dispensation, and that this new Sudanese political dispensation cannot be forced on people. It must be voluntary, and therefore, in our literature, we have what we call voluntary unity of the country. That is where the issue of the right of self-determination comes in, and it is important that this be put in its proper context. The right of self-determination, and it has concerned many Northerners, that this will bring the disunity, that it will bring separation. And I say quite categorically, yes, it can bring separation if the new Sudan is not achieved. Nobody would accept to be a second-class citizen in his or her own country. And so, unless we achieve a new Sudanese political dispensation, a new Sudan that belongs to all of us equally, in which we are equal stakeholders, then why should I remain in a country where I'm called Abid? No, I will not. But then, let us therefore take the bull by the horns and change the Sudan so that it belongs to all of us, so that it remains united. Otherwise, what is it that we have agreed? We have signed 6 agreements: Machakos, security arrangements, wealth sharing, power sharing, 2 areas between Jubal and Nuba, and Blue Nile, Wabie. These 6 protocol agreements constitute the core peace agreement. And so we can actually say that we have reached a peace agreement. We are left only with 2 issues: a comprehensive ceasefire and implementation modalities, which will be annexes. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the peace agreement. We don't have the time to do that. And they are also available in the internet. You can visit our website, www.splmtoday.com. They are also available in other Sudanese websites, and many of you have read these documents. I am aware that the new Sudan has been criticized by some people in the past as utopian, that it is wishful thinking. This is because, as we have seen, the new Sudan has several dimensions. It is at the same time a vision which guides us, as well as an objective to be achieved. And also it embodies elements of a strategy and tactics. And so for those who see the new Sudan only as a vision, they conclude that it is unrealistic. While for those who see it as an objective, they conclude that it is unachievable. While those who see the new Sudan as a strategy and tactics lose sight of the vision aspects and easily get distracted in the course of the struggle. And sometimes they end up capitulating, overwhelmed by the enormity of the vision and the duration of the struggle. And so some people try to take shortcuts, such as the Khartoum Peace Agreement, the Fashoda Agreement, the Djibouti Peace Agreement. There are no shortcuts and no easy walk to freedom and no easy walk to New Sudan. The only viable political framework, I believe, for the SPLM, for the NDA, and for the National Congress Party even, and for all the political forces in the Sudan, is the vision and program of the new Sudan. All other political programs whether it is Tawajj al-Hadari of the National Congress Party, or the quasi-liberal democratic regimes of the past, or military dictatorship, can only result in the disintegration of our country. Only Sudan al-Jadid, al-Bashmul Nihna Kuluna, will preserve the unity of our country. And this should be taken seriously. Because we have seen what has happened. No regime should be allowed to declare jihad against its own people. This is a recipe for disaster. How you say those people will declare jihad on them? Now, in this context, I want to talk about Darfur, because some people are mystified about what is going on in Darfur, and it is tragic, but it was bound to happen. What is happening in Darfur is government, what I would call government counterinsurgency gone wrong. See, counterinsurgency, and this is a military subject. When a regime is confronted with insurgency, it develops counterinsurgency. Hajat Tamarad. I don't know what the counterinsurgency is in Arabic.
Yeah, that's right.
Mudada Tamarad Gul. Al-Mudada Tamarada, the logic of it is that the government recruits people, individuals, from the constituency of the Mutamaridin, from the constituency of the insurgents. Government trains this and forms them into counterinsurgency units. These counterinsurgency units then fight alongside regular troops to defeat the insurgents. So far, this is legitimate. And you go to any US training school here, you will find FMs, field manuals, on counterinsurgency. What has happened in the Sudan is different from what I have just said. Recruiting individuals from the constituency of the insurgents. Why do governments do this? Because these individuals, they know the local languages, they know the local cultures, they know the local terrains. So they will direct the military. They will help the military. They are supplementary. They assist the regular forces. In the Sudan, it is not individuals that are recruited from the constituency of the insurgents. It is tribes that are recruited. Ethnic groups or elements of ethnic groups that are recruited. And they are told, and another ethnic group is identified as the enemy. And so you have counterinsurgency tribes. It happened in the South before. Militia. The government used militia, tribal-based militias to mobilize their tribes to attack other tribes. This is what happened in Rwanda. The tribe of the president, Habyarimana, the Hutu, were used as a counter-insurgency tribe against the Tutsi, who were the tribe of the rebellion. The same thing is happening in the Sudan, that the elements of Arab tribes in Darfur, and it is not all the Arab tribes, and the majority of the Arab tribes in Darfur are against this. But government uses elements of them, just as they used them in the South. So then, although it is not but Arabs against Africans, because there are no Arabs in the South. But the same counter-insurgency strategy was used to devastate. Recently, the Shulu Kingdom, and some of you heard it, was devastated by this tribal-based militias and this government counter-insurgency. And so I want to say very clearly that the problem in Darfur is not the Janjaweed as such. The Janjaweed are only a tool. The problem in Darfur is The problem of Darfur is the government counter-insurgency strategy. It should not happen. No government should be allowed to use tribes against tribes in order to remain in power. And so, when the international community talks about the disarmament, the government should disarm the Janjaweed, it's a big joke. Because it is the same government that armed the Janjaweed. And so how can the same government disarm part of its forces? So the solution must be what I said before, to have a new government in Khartoum. Now, when I say to have a new government in Khartoum, I'm not saying that the NIF and the National Congress Party should go. We have an agreement with them. But according to that agreement, we actually have a new government, a government of national unity. Fogo National Congress Party, Fogo SPLM, Fogo other political forces. It is this new government that will have the political and moral will and capacity to solve the problems of the country as a whole. And so we have three processes that should go concurrently. Government should negotiate with the NDA, and we are doing this in Cairo at the end of the month, and complete that negotiation so as to reach agreement with the NDA. Government should negotiate with the armed opposition in Darfur so as to reach political agreement with the armed opposition in Darfur, and we initiate a program of reconciliation among the tribes in Darfur, because they will continue to remain in Darfur because they are Darfurians, Arab tribes and the African tribes. Governments will come and go, لكن الشعب بتاع دارفور هتبقى. And so there must be a process of reconciliation among them. The Naivasha process, which has already been concluded, must be the six agreements, the two remaining agreements must be completed, so that the three processes, negotiations al-hasila fi Abuja بين armed opposition بتاع دارفور, when negotiations based on the Jeddah Protocol al-hasil في Cairo, and the Naivasha agreements should all be combined ويصب في سلام كبير الفوق الناس كله. I don't see a contradiction between the three processes. I don't see any contradiction between Naivasha and Cairo, or Cairo and Naivasha and Abuja. It is one process. بالنسبة لتقسيم السلطة, which we covered before, there is room for Darfur, because the division of power in the central government is between the south and the north. فالSPLM بس شالوا حقه حق الجنوب. هي 30%، 70% للشمال. This is according to population. And so ناس دارفور وناس جبال النوبة وناس نيل الأزرق وناس شرق السودان وناس نيو كوش this كوش organization يمشي يشيلوا النسبة بتوعهم من 70%. We have lots of programs that, with the peace agreement reached, we have lots of ideas as to what peace means to us in the SPLM. It means a paradigm shift, in summary, that we need to initiate development programs في الجنوب في الجبال في النيل الأزرق في الغرب في الشرق في السودان كله, new paradigms of development, What do I mean by that? There are lots of things. We have lots of resources. Fee oil, for example. We don't want to repeat the experience with other countries where they use the oil money to build a consumer society by just importing goodies from outside. We want to use the oil money literally to fuel agriculture. In summary, we shall articulate and implement a social, political, and economic development strategy that includes the following. One, it is a strategy that shall address the root causes that foster recurrent civil wars, so that these wars end in peaceful and just resolution of the conflicts all over our country, including Darfur and Eastern Sudan. This will be achieved through establishing what we have called people sovereignty, a people-centered form of governance, a true social contract between the people and their government. لازم يكون في علاقة ده. People should not be alienated من حكومته. What we have in the Sudan is how people even view al-Hakuma. Hakuma bishuvu as an object to be looted. And when somebody, I don't know how it is in the north, but I believe it is the same mentality. Can zol biga wazir 5 years بيقول شو ولد فلان بقى وزير 5 سنة ولا بنى ولا قطيع.
السلام والتنمية هي مبادئ يطلبها كل الشعب السوداني، ونحن
أصدقاء الإيجاد وأصبحوا شركاء الإيجاد، وهو يوقع كضامن رئيسي في هذا الاتفاق الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. وأيضا
محمد طه يضعون أيديهم في بعضها دليلا على مرحلة
South Sudan, and indeed the whole Sudan, has lost its beloved son, Dr. John Garang de Mabior, the first Vice President of the Republic of Sudan and the President of South Sudan, was on an official visit to Uganda during the period from 29th to 30th of July 2005, when the helicopter he was traveling in crashed near south of New Kush on his return last Saturday.
The people must be involved so that they put pressure on the government, so that the government behaves itself. فالانتفاضة أصله should be continuous in different forms. مش لإسقاط النظام لكن لأدب النظام عشان يعدبوا النظام, so that the government behaves according to the contract into Ma'amal Tumao. The same thing with the armed struggle. The armed struggle will continue, lakin not through shooting of bullets, but through the threat of the use of force.
مطارنا يا وين فوق باقي الناس تحت ما في زول يركب فوق في المنصة ما في زول يركب فوق في المنصة باقي الناس اكيد مكانكم ارجع وابودي
I shall hold tenaciously to the process of cooperation and good working relationship with President Omar Hassan Ahmed al-Bashir and Vice President Taha, which was initiated by my parting brother John in the very short spell he had in the presidential offices. Smooth relationship within the institution of the presidency shall be key to the successful implementation of the CPA. The SPLM shall continue to use its good offices. Peace shall not be complete without the extinction of the fires of war in Darfur and Eastern Sudan.
نزل يا خميس